There were 45 tents pitched across my land that night. Yeah, that's right. My swampy little corner of Florida. Bonfires popping, beer coolers sweating in the heat, and Karen, our self-proclaimed HOA president, was leading a sing-along in the middle of my field like she'd just won the damn lottery. She had that spray-tan glow and the energy of someone who never gets tired of hearing herself talk. And then, as if on cue, Ricky, my gator, my actual 9-foot roommate, came sliding out of the swamp and straight into the party. That's when the screaming started. Someone dropped a ukulele. And yep, that was me standing there with my mouth open, wondering for the 1,000th time how the hell I got myself into this mess. Let me back it up a little. You ever live somewhere so humid, the air feels like it's got opinions about your life choices? That's Florida. 90% of the year you can practically wring the air out like a dish rag. But me, I call it heaven. My own little slice, 10 acres of inherited muck, and wild, wedged between Highway 19 and a community so uptight their welcome signs are in cursive and they treat the HOA newsletter like it's the law of the land. My granddad used to call it Frog's Hollow, the county parcel B6721. That patch of swamp had been left alone for years until Karen rolled in with her McMansion and decided the whole neighborhood needed beautifying, which surprise meant everything she could see from her patio, including my mess of a backyard. At first it was almost funny, her out there in stilettos power walking the cul-de-sac, like she was on patrol peering through binoculars and shaking her head at me across the drainage ditch. First it was just looks. I'd catch her sipping rosé, judging me like I'd just let the dog poop in her pool. Then came the letters typed up laminated, slipped in a gallon Ziploc, like the gospel according to Karen. Unmaintained vegetation, non-standard fencing, visible animal structures, all issues apparently to be promptly addressed. I laughed. Tossed it. I wasn't in her HOA. My granddad's deed made sure of that. County plat map said clear as day, my land, my rules. But Karen, she doesn't let a thing like the law get in her way. She filed a nuisance complaint about my fence. County inspector came out, took one look at my handiwork, and complimented me. Left without so much as a warning. Next thing I know, Karen herself is on my porch, clipboard in hand, and that smile, the one that says, I'm here to help, but mostly, I'm here to snoop. A few of the neighbors are concerned, she says, eyes drifting over to the Beware of Alligator sign. And that's when it hit me she knew. I wasn't just some swamp hermit. I was a licensed wildlife biologist, part-time alligator wrangler for the state. In this patch of muck, it was home to 3 legally tagged, fully documented American alligators. I pointed out my permit framed right by the door. They're here legally. So am I. She just sniffed like I'd said something dirty. It's still an eyesore, she muttered, and frankly a liability. Let that hang in the air. Next thing I know, she's plastered a photo of my property all over the community board caption, neighboring properties bringing down value. Let's talk solutions. She even called the news. They filmed Ricky sunning on a log and spun it into a scare piece, Gators Next Door. Are your children at risk? Suddenly I had strangers knocking on my door, some curious, some worried one asking if I sold gator meat. Karen doubled down, petitioned the county to redraw the HOA boundaries to include my land. Brought in a lawyer so slick he probably used shoe polish on his teeth. I got word of it from a neighbor who hated her guts but never missed a meeting if there was free wine. They think if they annex your land, they can make you follow their rules, he said, shaking his head. That night I sat on my porch, beer in hand, frogs, croaking, gators grunting. I'd spent 5 years cleaning up what my granddad never finished, replanting cypress, building nesting mounds, and here comes Karen ready to turn it all into one big suburban flower bed. I got a compliance walkthrough from Fish and Wildlife just to be safe, passed with flying colors, put up new do not enter signs right by her patio. A week later, someone spray-painted swamp trash across one. Things got personal. She sent a drone over my land, filmed me working, put it online as evidence. I filed a trespass complaint. She staged a clean neighborhood rally, picket signs, and all drained the swamp. I'm telling you, irony is lost on some people. But every time she pushed, I documented. Every bogus complaint, every dollar the HOA spent to mess with me, every time she used her position for a private vendetta. I was building a swamp, yeah, but I was also building a case. Karen had no clue that the next wilderness experience would be her last stand. Then the mail started. Letters with fake gold stickers and official-sounding stamps. Riverbend Environmental Assessment Subcommittee. Citing me for inadequate visual containment of aquatic enclosures. Signed K. Mitchell, HOA President, Acting Liaison. No phone number, no return address. Riverbend wasn't even a real town, just the name of the subdivision. She was forging code violations, dropping them in my mailbox like she was the sheriff and the judge. Unauthorized lighting, those were my solar path lights. Unpermitted structures, my nephew's duck blind. Standing water in a swamp, go figure. But the real kicker. While I was downstate tagging baby gators, Karen introduced a motion at the HOA meeting community enrichment events in adjacent green spaces. She pitched a Riverbend Wilderness Retreat pilot program, a weekend festival, camping, bonfires, crafts, even an early morning gator watch hike. She used an old permit from a scout troop, rewrote it, claimed she was revitalizing the land. The city, swamped with real problems, rubber-stamped it. I came home 3 days later, and there it was, an entire festival pitched on my land. There were tents everywhere, kids running wild. My solar lights tossed in a bin labeled tripping hazard. Someone dug a latrine behind the palmettos. Karen, dressed up like a knockoff park ranger, was holding a megaphone, and I swear a ukulele. I stood frozen, part of me convinced I was hallucinating. Then I spotted Ricky at the edge of the pond, blinking slow and lazy like he was sizing up the odds of getting a marshmallow. I stomped right into the crowd, stepping over juice boxes and granola bar wrappers. Some kid asked if I was the ranger. Nope, I said. I'm the owner. Karen spotted me and practically hopped off her stage. You're back early, she chirped like we were old pals. I asked her what the hell was going on. She gestured to the chaos and called it community in action. Said my land was underutilized. My jaw nearly hit the ground. You're trespassing, I told her. She played innocent. We have a provisional event permit, and besides, you weren't even here. I pointed out the ripped-down no trespassing signs, and the fact that they'd cut my fence. She just sighed and called me territorial. People are bonding, she said. We made trail mix. A toddler waddled by holding 2 frogs. Someone was blasting 80s hits on a speaker duct taped to a tree. Then a teenager sprinted for the pond yelling, "Cannonball." I grabbed him by the hoodie just before he dove into gator territory. His mom yelled at me for manhandling her kid, asked where the gators were, wanted a photo. I told Karen to clear out. She crossed her arms, megaphone swinging. You want to be the man who shuts down family fun? She sneered, said code enforcement was fine with it. That's when I realized she wasn't clueless. She was calculated. She'd pulled this off while I was gone, knowing I couldn't stop her. But if Karen wanted a wilderness adventure, she was about to get one. That night, after stopping a toddler from feeding marshmallows to a cottonmouth, yeah, that happened, I went inside, poured myself a glass of sweet tea and Spite, and opened up tabs for the Wildlife Commission, code enforcement, and my favorite local reporter, Tara Granger, who's made a living busting corrupt HOAs. First call Marcus, my buddy at Fish and Wildlife. It's not good, I told him. I've got an illegal campout happening, gators and all. He promised a unit would be there. Next, I filed a complaint with code enforcement, photos, ripped fences, latrines, the works. Then I shot off an email to Tara, HOA President, hosts unlicensed campout in protected wetland. Her reply, on my way. Don't move the body unless it's breathing. I dug up my granddad's conservation easement, the federal document that protected this patch of swamp, restricted any unauthorized occupation, and made it a crime to do pretty much everything Karen was doing. I made copies, highlighted the best bits, loaded up a thumb drive labeled Karen's Last Supper. And then I watched. The party went on Kumbaya Taylor Swift parodies, Karen strutting in her custom wilderness director vest. Tara pulled up camera on her shoulder, ready for the scoop of the year. This is a lawsuit in cargo shorts, she muttered. I pointed down to the marsh. That's when Ricky slid up the embankment, all prehistoric muscle and swamp attitude. The music died. A kid screamed, then a grown man. People scattered, marshmallows flew, and Karen tried to keep control. Stay calm, she shouted. It's just a large amphibian. Someone yelled, Lady, that's a gator. And then the cops rolled in, lights flashing. Marcus and the Fish and Wildlife crew arrived, all business. Ricky, of course, just blinked in the firelight, looking like he wanted to know why nobody brought him a burger. As the chaos peaked, Officers started herding folks off my land, reading out violations. Karen got pulled aside, Tara's camera zooming in. "You trespassed on protected habitat," one officer read. "You disrupted wildlife, lit fires, invited minors onto land you don't own." Karen sputtered, claimed she had a permit. "Signed by who? Myself. And the HOA. That's not how federal land works, ma'am." By midnight, the tents were down, coolers packed, bonfire out. Cops handed out citations like candy. Fish and Wildlife filed charges. Karen's name was on every neighborhood Facebook group by sunrise. Tara's headline, "Gator Preserve Invaded by HOA, Chaos Arrests, and a Surprise Reptile Cameo." She even credited Ricky. The next few weeks were glorious. I rebuilt my fence this time with steel posts and big bold signs. "No trespassing. No camping. This is a federally protected alligator habitat. Violators may be filmed and fed to local media." Ricky was happy. I was happier. Even saw a realtor's car at Karen's place for sale sign strapped to the roof. Poetic, honestly. Florida justice doesn't always need a judge. Sometimes all it takes is a swamp, a gator, and an HOA queen who didn't read the fine print. After the dust settled, things were quiet. A kind of hush you only hear after a big storm. Parents kept their kids close. The HOA's Facebook page lit up with comments, some angry, some gleeful. Cleanup bills, rolled in fines stacked up. The HOA's precious rainy day fund gone, eaten up by government agencies and wetland restoration costs. The next meeting was a witch trial. Karen, surrounded by neighbors, couldn't answer the question, "Why should we pay for your mistakes?" The board dissolved. The treasurer quit to sell Mary Kay. Karen's best friend turned on her, lamenting her lost hiking socks in my marsh. Karen tried to hold on, blamed fake permits. Rogue campers even accused me of sabotage by wildlife. But the county stripped the HOA of its power pending a full audit. Tara's story hit the news. Riverbend was now famous not for its manicured lawns, but for being the first HOA in the county to go broke fighting a gator habitat. I spent the insurance settlement on new fences and educational kiosks. Schools started booking tours. Even the mayor's office sent a letter congratulating me on turning conflict into community outreach. The moral, well, here's what I learned late, but clear as a gator's grin in the moonlight. Sometimes standing your ground means more than just holding your property line. It means knowing what you're fighting for, having the patience to outlast the petty, and trusting that the truth will surface eventually, just like a gator in a pond. As for Karen, last I saw, she was loading suitcases into her Lexus, face tight, reputation wrecked. Word is she's consulting in Ohio now. Riverbend went back to being what it always was, a patchwork of families and wild places stitched together by respect, not rules. Ricky's a local celebrity. I still catch my reflection some nights, a little older, a lot more satisfied. The sign on my fence glints in the moonlight, "Private property." Trespassers may be educated or eaten. In Florida, we make sure the message sticks. So tell me, where do you draw the line between standing up for what's yours and just wanting to control your neighbors? Is justice letting nature take its course, or should we always step in? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me about the time you faced down a bully, a board, or a bureaucracy. I want to hear your story.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video của mình.